We wouldn't normally get too excited about a mid-range model, but we are about this new BMW 1 Series variant. It's called the 128ti, and it's hugely significant in a couple of ways. One, it's BMW's first ever front-wheel drive hot hatch. And two, it's priced and powered to go after the most famous hot hatch of all, the Volkswagen Golf GTI. How close on cost? Well, the 128ti's RRP of $56,900 is less than $4,000 above that of the GTI, which is now more expensive than ever, of course. There are styling similarities too, because BMW has dropped the more aggressive M-car approach for this car and instead gone with a bit more of a subtle look. There are even some GTI cues. You've got honeycomb grille down here for the lower air take and red accents at the front, which are these side air curtains here. And they are actually in black though, if you go with the different exterior colours, which is Melbourne red and Misano blue. Red accents also down the profile view. Got this long red stripe along the side skirts. TI decal here, probably the only boy racer element of what is otherwise a very mature hot hatch design. Red brake calipers. M badge, but just to stress, this is not an M car and it's not even an M Sport car like the M135i X-Drive. 18-inch wheels with a Y-spoke rim design. They're exclusive to the 128ti and they're wrapped in very sporty Michelin Pilot Sport rubber. Now, at the back, we've got a subtle roof spoiler, lower bumper with a pseudo diffuser design, twin tailpipes, 90mm in diameter, look quite beefy. Then you've got the 128ti badge here. Now, TI, that stands for Turismo Internazionale. Yes, not very German sounding. That was first used by BMW in the 1960s on iconic models such as the 2002ti, but hasn't been used for about 16 years when it was put on a truncated version of the E46 3 Series.
Practicality is an important aspect of any hot hatch's makeup, of course, and there's a very handy 380 litres of boot space, a touch more than the GTI's luggage capacity. Fold-in seat backs too. You just have to pay for an option pack if you want an auto tailgate, luggage net and ski port. The 1 Series' move from rear-wheel drive configuration to front-wheel drive in 2019 achieved one of its key aims to improve rear seat space, so it's decently roomy, if not exactly generous, in the back of the 128ti.
The most obvious sign you're not in a 118i or an M135i 1 Series is this TI logo embroidered on the front armrest. Lots of red stitching here on the dash, on the doors, another nod to a certain Golf that we know. A chunky M steering wheel here, and what else do we have? We've got the M tricolour seat belts, very nice touch, and they're standard. Red borders for the floor mats. The seats, these are not standard. The upholstery is cloth in the regular 128ti, but we've got the Dakota leather seats, which are a $2,200 option. Very nice, very sporty. Electric adjustment is standard, and that's both seats, where in a Golf GTI you have to tick an option pack to even get electric adjustment for the front driver's seat. You also get electric adjustment for the side bolstering, so you can press this button here and just so you can squeeze your torso that much more when you're going for a bit of a dynamic steer. We will get to that point, of course. A couple of options I should point out on our test car. Sunroof here, that's a $3,000 option, and we've also got heated seats and steering wheel. But plush materials are standard throughout the cabin, lots of soft touch materials. Different array of textures, but they're well coordinated. And as good as a Golf GTI Mark 8 looks inside, I think the 128ti cabin looks that touch more premium.
As with other 1 Series models, there's a central infotainment touchscreen and a fully digital driver display, both just over 10 inches in size. Unlike the GTI's digital instrument cluster, the 128ti doesn't get its own unique graphics and also lacks the Volkswagen's range of customization. The BMW otherwise has the more intuitive cabin. Where almost all functions in the Golf are now restricted to the touchscreen, the 1 Series sticks with buttons for important areas such as climate control. The infotainment system can also be controlled via a rotary dial on the centre console, as well as shortcut buttons, which makes it easy to use while driving. Wireless smartphone charging and digital radio are included, but buyers have to stump up extra cash if they want a fancy Harman Kardon audio system. Adaptive cruise control is also a surprising option, something you would expect to be standard.
Right, let's get down to business. The engine under the bonnet is a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo. It's the same engine found in the M135i xDrive, but detuned. So a bit less power, where that all-wheel drive performance hatch has got 225 kilowatts and 450 newton meters. Here we've got 180 kilowatts and 380 newton meters. But that makes it very comparable to the GTI, which has got the same power and only a fraction less torque at 370 newton meters. BMW quotes 6.3 seconds for the 0 to 100 sprint. That's 2.2 seconds quicker than the 118i base model, 1.5 seconds slower than the M135i xDrive, but that car does have all-wheel drive, of course. And that 6.3 seconds makes it a smidge quicker than the Golf GTI, which is 6.4 seconds. In the real world, very hard to split the difference in the acceleration performance of the two cars. Much of a muchness. Both very enjoyable engines to use. The 2-litre engine is nice and responsive, even around town at slow speeds. Just occasionally a little bit of hesitation from the 8-speed auto, which is a torque converter, not a dual clutch. You can just put the car into sport mode and let the gearbox do the changes, and it does a very good job of that, but we've got paddles, and that's definitely the way to enjoy this 128ti on the move. With the M Sport suspension underneath this 128ti, we get shorter springs, firmer dampers and stiffer anti-roll bars. There isn't adaptive suspension, it's just a single setting, and it is firm, there's no doubt about it. I would say that the firmness of the ride is probably on par with the sportier setting of the Golf GTI's adaptive suspension, which has 15 different levels. But there's a key question: can you live with this 128ti on a daily basis? And I think the answer is a very convincing yes, because while it does feel a little stiff at times, it can get a little bit busy on the worst roads that you might find around town. The dampers actually do a very good job of absorbing potholes and bigger bumps. And I'd even say that the rear suspension of this BMW does a better job of dealing with bigger hits than the GTI's rear suspension. Just perhaps for a car that is going to cost you well in excess of $60,000 on road, adaptive dampers probably should be standard. Now, there's an immediate improvement in the driving over the M135i xDrive, because the steering doesn't have the vague patch around the straight ahead that the all-wheel drive model has, so it feels more precise more of the time. But what about torque steer? Well, we're going to find out, because we're coming into a hairpin here. Okay, a little bit more patient on the throttle. Now, nail it. Wow. Considering the tricky conditions that we're facing here, very damp, that traction was really impressive. That limited slip diff on the front axle doing a great job. In fact, the handling in these conditions to the point where I'm not even missing the all-wheel drive of the M135i. Chassis is terrific. Front end nice and alert as soon as you turn the steering wheel. Oh, the steering weighting is just really nice. It's good even in the comfort mode. It's got a bit more heft than it does in the GTI. A little bit more feedback than in the Golf. Here's another tricky corner. Oh yes, that's good. The chassis is just dancing around. Even though the stiffness of those dampers, this is a car that feels planted. It's not bouncing around over bumpy country roads. It's also worth noting that, yes, an M135i has quite a bit more power and torque, but the 128ti is also 80 kilos lighter. That's not a small amount. But if there's one key thing I take away from this 128ti is that while I miss the 6-cylinder of the old M140i hot hatch, I don't miss that model's rear-wheel drive so much, and that is a huge credit to the front-wheel drive handling of this car. Considering it's more than 20 years since BMW took over Mini, perhaps we shouldn't be surprised that the Munich brand has now the front-wheel drive hot hatch formula first time out. And the 128ti doesn't just match the Golf GTI at its own game, it beats it, if only narrowly. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Quicker than the 118i base model, 1.5 seconds slower than the M135. Oh, no, I don't want you, you silly moo. I'm bloody doing a video. If I... Oh, yeah, see you later. Ugh, how rude. Anyway.